Originally released in 1991, Disney's The Rocketeer has gone on to become a bit of a cult classic. And whilst there wasn't really a toy line to support it at the time of release, it seems that in recent years there's been an explosion in merchandising and toy companies seem to have been falling over themselves to get a hold of the license. We've seen all sorts of oddities and figures in all scales, including 3.5 inch. We've had Mego at 8 inch, and we've even had Diamond Select at their usual standard 7 inches, as well as some 1/6 scale entries such as the Real Action Heroes version. But not too long ago, Funko did their own 6-inch scale version, and that is what I'm going to take a closer look at today. So we'll start by looking at the packaging. It's a fairly simple design. It is that window packaging so we can see the figure in there perfectly, and around it is this sort of dull sort of grey silver and a little bit of gold. There is a nice image from the film in the bottom left corner, and overall it's very presentable, but like I said, it feels a little bit dull, a little bit colourless. The side of the packaging is more of the same. It is again that sort of silver grey, and there is that little icon in the centre there showing the still from the film, which looks very attractive, and I think it's nicely done. Like I said, it's still a little bit dull, but it is at least presentable. The back of the packaging, however, is a significant step up. We can see that the silver grey that's on the front and on the side panels is stretching out from this poster, which is done in the Art Deco style. And this is a beautiful piece of artwork, and it's also nice to have a large scale production photograph there as well, so we can see the character as he appears in the film. When the figure is out of the packaging, you will immediately appreciate the sculpt. They've gone to a great effort here to create something new and unique for this character, and I think they've done overall a pretty fantastic job. I think it's worth noting that the rocket pack is actually attached to his back, so you can't pop it out, it is permanently stuck in there. But you can see that they've spared no expense when it comes to pouring all their love and attention into this figure. There's amazing attention to detail. We can see the laces in his boots, we can see the soles, and even the laces in the side of his boots there. And what's really nice is they've complemented this with a fantastic paint wash as well. So rather than just moulding it in a brown plastic or a black plastic, they've give it a brown wash or a black wash over it. So you've got two tones going on to make it look like proper leather and that it's actually worn and lived in. Likewise, you'll see they've bothered to mould on separate pieces for the jacket, so that is a separate piece on the front there where it's all buttoned up, and they've painted every single button there individually, and there's no smudging, and it just looks brilliant. The paint apps are absolutely fantastic, and they've done an incredible job. And this also applies to the jetpack itself. How beautifully painted is this? How accurate is it? There's no smudging here. You can see that that's a really shiny metallic silver and gold at the top. And the sculpt is just absolutely pitch perfect. So I think this is a really, really beautiful thing. And you'll notice they've gone the extra mile of actually sticking that pink bubblegum, as we see in the film, to cover that hole that appears. Just a lovely little touch and just fantastic attention to detail. One thing I noticed is that for the pegs, they've actually decided to go with a clear plastic. I'm not sure whether this is a bonus or a hindrance, really. It is kind of noticeable. I'm not sure why they didn't just opt for a solid white or cream to match the legs. Certainly this is better than, say, using a black peg, which would just really stood out, but it's still an interesting choice. Now, as for the head sculpt, I'm sort of in two minds about this. On the one hand, I do think the sculpt is actually pretty decent. I think that's pretty recognisable as the actor, and I think they've done a really good job. I think where I'm having hesitancy is around the paint apps. And in particular, it's the eyes. I think maybe the eyebrows are a little bit too thick, and the eyes themselves are a little bit too pale, a bit too stark. The articulation is really solid for this figure. He has a ball jointed head, so that means he can spin his head pretty much most of the way around, and he can lift it up and down a pretty good distance too. So that's top marks for that. He has ball jointed shoulders, so he can get them up a fair distance and kick them out to the side there nice and wide, which is great. And he's got a peg joint in the elbow as well, which means he can spin his arm right the way around, and it does bend at 90 degrees there. Likewise, we can see the same thing in the wrist there, so of course he can spin his wrist 360 degrees, but there's also that hinge which allows it to bend inwards and outwards as well, which is great. Now he also has some ab articulation, which is great, and this allows him to rotate in the sort of the mid-abdomen area, and he can bend forwards and backwards at pretty good distance as well, so this is really strong. Likewise, he's got those ball jointed hips there, which allow him to kick his legs out to the side, which is great, and he's also got a swivel at the top of the thigh.
He can kick his legs forwards and backwards a little bit, and he's got the double jointed knees, which is absolutely fantastic. And of course he has an ankle pivot as well, which means he can rock his feet from side to side and kick them forwards and backwards. He does come with a couple of accessories as well. He has his Luger, and of course his helmet. And when you put them together, you get something pretty special. I think the helmet is absolutely beautifully painted. Again, it has that metallic gold paint over it, which looks really good and it shines up lovely in the light. And of course he holds his Luger very nicely. His finger does go through the trigger, which is really good. But the only thing I would say is that it's not a very snug fit. It is actually quite loose in his hand there, so there is a tendency for the Luger to slip out of his grip. So that's something to be aware of. And for the sake of a size comparison, here he is next to Character Options 6th Doctor, of course, in a 5-inch scale. And you can see that the Rocketeer obviously towers above him. And here he is next to a Marvel Legends Spider-Man. Again, Spider-Man is in the 6-inch scale, so you can see these are approximately the same height, although the Rocketeer does look to have the edge. And this is a good match. I like this. And likewise, here he is with the Mafex Justice League Batman. Again, these are approximately in the same scale, although it looks to me like the Rocketeer is actually slightly bigger on all fronts. And there you have it. I think this is a pretty fantastic figure, really. I can't really find anything to fault it on. I love the paint apps, I love the attention to detail, and I think the overall mould is pretty fantastic. If you're a fan of the Rocketeer and you like the 6-inch scale, then you're going to want him in your collection. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as I'll be posting a lot more videos soon.